everyone. Today we're going to be working with the negative exponent rule. So let's look at our notes. So with the negative exponent rule, we have to pay attention to the fact that if an exponent is negative, something needs to change. It cannot stay negative. So up here we can see that if it is on the bottom of the fraction bar, if it is in the denominator, it needs to move up to the numerator. If it's in the numerator, or just looks like it's by itself up here, it needs to go down to the denominator, and a 1 goes on top. Basically, you are flipping it over the fraction bar. So let's start with number 1. We have x to the negative 5. Well, we know that anything is automatically over an invisible 1. So I now can look at this and I can see if it is on top of my fraction bar and it's negative, it needs to go to the bottom of my fraction bar. I'm actually going to swap everything. My 1 goes on top, my variable with my exponent goes on bottom, and my exponent is now no longer negative. So again, we're going to look at that with 2. I've got, but with 2, we've got a whole number. Now the whole number does not have a negative exponent on it, so it actually is going to stay on the top. So again, this is all over 1. I had to flip things to my denominator. So I've got 3 stays on top. And now my m squared goes on bottom, and boom, it's no longer negative. All right, so on 4, we've got to do a step first. So this time we're multiplying before we change anything. Go ahead and always perform whatever action they want you to first before you move things around your fraction bar, before you change your negative exponents to be positive. This will save you a lot of time and a lot of confusion. So we're going to go ahead and multiply like I did before. Again, I'm going to go ahead and multiply my coefficients. So 6 times negative 3 is negative 18. And then I'm looking at x to the 8th and x to the negative 7th. So I've got to add those two. So I've got 8 plus negative 7. That's a little redundant. I know that these two come together and I get negative. So I've got 8 minus 7. So I've got negative 18 x to the 1 power. So you know what? This just stays alone by itself. It's perfectly fine. You don't have to do anything to it. Alrighty, so I'm looking at 5. We have to distribute this. Remember, it has to be distributed to everything, not just the 3, but, not just the x to the cube, but to the 3 as well. So now I've got 3 to the negative 2, and I've got x to the negative 6. Well, these are both over an invisible 1, and they both have a negative exponent to them. So they both have to go to my denominator now. And my 1's going to go to the numerator. So my 1 flips over to the top, my 3 flips to the bottom squared, and my x to the 6th power flips over. Now we can't just leave it like that. You need to go ahead and multiply everything out. So I've got 1 over 9 x to the 6th power. Alrighty. We're going to come over here to 7 real quick. Again, I've got to make sure I multiply this negative 2 by every single thing. So, it's going to go to every single part of what's inside. So I now have negative 8 to the negative 2 power. I now have x to the negative 10 power. Because again, this is negative 2 multiplying by that invisible 1 on that 8. This is negative 2 multiplying by that 5 on that x. And negative 2 multiplying by that 4 on that y. Well, I've got negative 2 times negative 4, so I'm actually going to get positive 8. Alrighty, so this time, I'm actually going to leave my y on top. So I've got y to the 8 on top of my fraction bar because it's already positive. I'm going to go ahead and bring down the negative 8 to the negative 2 power. And I'm going to bring down, oops, you know what? I made a boo-boo there. It's no longer negative 2. It is just 2 now. And I'm going to bring down my x to the 10 power. But again, I cannot leave it like that. So I've got y to the 8. I've got 64, because negative 8 times negative 8 is 64, and x to the 10th power. That's my final answer. All right, we're going to look at 9. Oh, again, we're going to need to use what we've learned in the past, and we're going to want to go ahead and completely multiply this out before we start moving things around. So, negative 2 multiplying by everything inside, and negative 3 multiplying by everything inside. So, I now have x to the negative 4 power, and y to the negative 6 power, and all of that's being multiplied by, again, I've got x, this time to the negative 15 power, and y to the negative 12 power. Again, I got all those numbers because, for example, I've got negative 2 times 2 is negative 4, negative 2 times 3 is negative 6, negative 3 times 5 is negative 15, and negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. Okay, so now we're going to have to continue multiplying. Remember, when we multiply exponent, when we multiply variables, we add their exponents. So I've actually got x to the negative 4 plus negative 15. I've actually got y to the negative 6 plus negative 12. Now again, same signs, add and keep the sign. So I've actually got x to the negative 19, and I've got y to the negative 18. So I can't leave them like this though. You cannot have negative exponents. They are both over 1. So I'm going to flip this fraction around. 1's on top now. And I brought my x down to the denominator, and it's now positive. And I brought my y down as well, so that it can now become positive. And that's my final answer. Let's go ahead and completely do everything. So I've got, before I start worrying about my negative exponents, I need to go ahead and take care of everything else. Negative 24 divided by 3 is negative 8. I've got x to the 5th divided by x to the negative 2. Here's where it gets really tricky. I have x to the 5th. I have to make sure I have this subtraction right here, and it's also got a negative on the 2. So I know that when I have two negatives together, they become positive. So that becomes 5 plus 2. So now I've got negative 8 x to the 7. And that one just stays as it is. It's perfectly fine. So I've got, let's go ahead and again, if you don't have different colors you want to use, you can use the circle method. So I've got, oh, this looks familiar. I've got b squared divided by b squared. So that's for multiple reasons. Anything over itself equals 1. It's also because b2 minus 2 is 0, and b to the 0 is going to equal 1. So lots of reasons for why that's going to become 1. Now I can't forget about c. Remember, if there's nothing next to a variable, it is automatically got an invisible 1 as the exponent. So I've got c 1 minus 5. All right, cool. So I've got c negative 4. Now I know that this 1 is still here. I've got c negative 4, and that's great, but they're both over 1. So I don't have to rewrite my b anymore. It just disappears. We don't have to keep doing that. but I do need to go ahead and flip this over the fraction bar. It's 1 over c to the 4th power. And now it's positive. Alrighty, so I'm looking at 16. So 16, I'm going to go ahead and do, again, the circle method. I'm going to subtract. Actually, I think I'm going to do the expansion method this time. I have not done that. Nope, I don't want to do the expansion method this time because y is to the negative 3rd power. I want to leave this alone real quick. So I've got 4 minus 2. And I've got y to the negative 3rd minus 2. So I have x squared, y to the negative 5th. Excellent, but I'm not quite done. I cannot leave that y as a negative. So I'm going to keep x squared on top, and I'm going to bring the y to the 5th power down to the bottom, and I've got y to the 5th power. And this is my final answer. $18. Excellent. So I'm looking at 36 divided by 12. 36 divided by 12. That's going to give me 3. And, oh, there's nothing here on the bottom for x. So we'll just bring down x to the negative 4. Awesome. And I've got y to the 8 minus 7. Okay, so I've got 3 x to the negative 4 and y. Now the only thing that needs to be taken to my denominator is x to the negative 4. So I'm left with 3y over x to the 4. All right, so that's perfectly fine. I did want to go ahead and say, please remember, we have been flipping things over the fraction bar. I just want to include an extra example real quick. If we had, for example, let's say x squared over y to the negative 3rd, please bear in mind that if something's in the bottom and it's negative, it has to come to the top. So I would have to have x squared y 3. So, and another final example, if I had x to the negative 7, y to the negative 9, I would have to flip them both. So it would become y to the 9 on top over x to the 7. So please pay attention and make sure you are flipping things over your fraction bar, moving things to your numerator and denominator as needed. Make sure if it's already in the numerator, you move it to the denominator and make it positive. If it's already in the denominator, to the numerator, make it positive. Excellent. Have a great day.